Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, depending on what side of the world you are on. This is the Roaming Prepper. I hope everyone's having a good week so far. This is not supposed to be a long live. As you can see, I'm actually in transit. I'm stopped in traffic in the weirdest place I could imagine, but that's besides the point. Anyway, I just wanted to share something I found with y'all. I thought it was super interesting. Um, the they recently had a convention called SIGComm, and it's basically a bunch of telecom, uh, internet, telecommunications, satellite, et cetera type folks all met to have a discussion on the evolution of communications, dangers to communication, stuff like that. One guy came up with a paper, and I'll review it in more detail later. And basically, what he put together, and this was a doctor, it was actually a guy from India who was working with an American university. And he put together a paper on CMEs, a coronal mass ejection. Essentially, it's when the sun emits a massive amount of particles, more than it normally does. Uh, this is the same phenomenon that creates the aurora borealis, the northern lights that a lot of people love to look at in the winter up north or down south, depending on what part of the world you're in. But he's saying, based on statistics, any given decade, there's a 10% chance that we would get hit with something similar to the Carrington event. Now, if you're not familiar, in the late 1800s, there was a massive coronal mass ejection that actually hit the Earth, referred to as the Carrington event. And what that actually caused was, back in the day, it was all telegraph and like telephone wires, real old stuff. These thick copper wires actually caught fire all across the northern hemisphere. The US, Europe, Russia all reported that their telegraph lines at the time all caught fire, which is crazy because that was very old tech. As a matter of fact, Western Union told its operators to unplug the power from the telegraph machines, and they were still able to send telegraphs because of the electromagnetic effect of that CME. It was powering the actual telegraph equipment. So even though they disconnected their own batteries and generators, they could still hit the keys and send signals to each other. This doctor, it's a 13-page paper. I'm actually downloading it at the house now. This 13-page paper, he breaks down that it would be, if a big CME hit, which again, it's a 10% likelihood in the next 10 years. And he said statistically we're overdue. There was an incident in '89 that actually hit part of Canada and knocked the western part of Canada off their telecom grids. So this has happened before, and in the more modern age. And obviously in '89, we were nowhere near as digital as we are now. Hey, Joe, how you doing? I'm not going to chat because, as you all can see, I'm driving. I'll just get in a wreck doing that. So anyway, this CME effect, he said, actually would not hit everyone the same way. A lot of us have hypothesized that a coronal mass ejection, or like an EMP, which is basically, it would create the same effect, would knock everything out. His proposal is that it wouldn't. It would be erratic. So power lines would go down, but local power might still stay up. You might have internet within a country or a state, but you couldn't communicate across state lines. So he would he's proposing that. No, Joe, I won't text and drive. That would be a very bad idea. But he's proposing that a CME, if it did occur, would actually affect the underwater communications cables in the Atlantic. Now, I haven't read the paper. Like I said, I'm still downloading it at the house. It's a 13-page PDF. But what he's saying is that it would knock out international comms, but not necessarily like take the whole grid down. So it makes you wonder, would an EMP which is much more localized, have the same effect? Would it not knock out everything? Would it be very erratic in what it knocked out? This guy does propose, though, that the CME would be much worse than an EMP because an EMP is regional, right? It's one atomic weapon in one area detonating and knocking out whatever it is in that area. Whereas a coronal mass ejection could last 12 hours, and during that 12 or 18-hour cycle, the entire Earth is going to rotate and get hit by it. So he said, unlike an EMP, which would knock out a very concentrated area in depth, a CME would erratically knock out international and satellite communications, but not consistently, but it would do it to the whole northern hemisphere of the US, and probably in the process knock out parts of South America and Africa as well. So really interesting paper. If you look up the SIGComm, SIGComm 2021, look for the CME paper. That's how I found it. It is written by a professor Van Gernathan. It's an Indian name. He and 3 other collaborators wrote that paper. I read the abstract and it absolutely floored me. So if you guys get a chance, go check it out. Hey, Donna, how are you? If I missed anyone, I apologize. All your texts are like that big. I can see your names barely. So very interesting, because then that kind of flies in the face of the whole EMP effect. I've even been told by fellow aerospace engineers who actually stayed in the industry, unlike I, telling me that because aircraft are reinforced against lightning strikes, a lot of them would survive or could survive an EMP hit, other than the ones that were in the blast radius of the nuke itself, which would get knocked out of the sky. The problem would be that the communications on the ground would go away, and now you'd have hundreds or if not thousands of aircraft flying around blind, not knowing where to land or not being able to communicate with each other. So interesting paper. I'm going to read it. I'm going to print it out, read it, and then get into more depth maybe this weekend. But I thought you guys would like a read. Well, Joe, I'm glad. It sounds like you had a rough day, but I hope it's winding down, man. But guys, go look up that paper. It's 13 pages. It is in a PDF format, and it was downloaded. The link brought me to, I think it was a university in Indiana. I may be wrong. It was a university website that I've seen before, and you're able to download it. There's no charge to you. So if you guys want to do a little bit of science reading and get your geek on, like I like to do, by all means, pull the paper down. The paper is really a summary of the entire research topic. So it's made for general public consumption. So you don't have to be like some kind of physicist to understand it. From what I saw, it was meant for everyone, from business people to engineers to computer programmers. So go take a look, and yeah, you guys be safe, and check it out if you get a chance. Take care. I'll see you later. Bye.